You've tuned into another edition of The Break Room, a weekly conversation about how the City of St. Augustine works from those who do the work every day. Hosted by the City of St. Augustine's Communications Director, Melissa Wissel, The Break Room offers a closer look at the different city departments and provides updates on current and upcoming projects and events. And now, your host, Melissa Wissel.
Welcome to The Break Room. Thanks for joining us. I'm Melissa Wissel, Communications Director for the City of St. Augustine. If you look around downtown on any given day and on any random street, you will likely come across at least one, if not several, construction projects. And whether it's a road or a sidewalk repair, a utility project, or even routine public works maintenance, you may not be able to tell exactly what's going on. So when the project is right downtown in front of the plaza on the bayfront, at the base of the Bridge Alliance, not to mention behind a huge barrier wall of plywood, everybody sees it and everybody wants to know what is going on behind that wall. The particular project that I'm referring to is a lift station upgrade. And what exactly is that? Well, I have the city's engineering manager, Stephen Slaughter, in studio with me this week to tell us. Stephen, welcome back to the Break Room.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you very much.
So this lift station project, let's get right down to it. It's causing quite a stir because it's right down there in the middle of all the action in downtown St. Augustine.
Yes, it is. Right in your face. So it's a FEMA 13. What we're calling the project is the FEMA 13 Rehabilitation and Force Main Improvement Project.
Okay.
Basically, these are 13 lift stations that were damaged during Hurricane Matthew and again during Hurricane Irma. They were flooded with the storm surge.
Right.
And so this project is to rebuild them. It's a resiliency project. We're going to be hardening the lift stations, making them more resilient to flooding, and to basically keep them functioning during a storm.
And when we talk about lift stations, I think you say it very easily. I'm somewhat familiar with it, but I think people hear the term lift station and we talk about it so simply. What exactly is a lift station? Help us understand what that really means.
So a lift station, also known as a pump station, is basically that. It collects wastewater and it lifts it up. But before we go further down that route, let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So if you have city water and you're not on septic, you most likely have city sewer, gravity sanitary sewer. Okay. So when you flush your toilets or you wash your hands or take a shower, that water goes down your drain, down the lateral from your property into the city street, into our gravity collection system. And so this is a system of pipes, gravity mains connected by manholes that you can visually see in the street, and they transport the wastewater via gravity to the lowest point in the collection system in that area, and that would be the lift station. Okay. And so the lift station's purpose is to basically collect it all in one location, and when it fills up to a predetermined amount with floats and submersible pumps, it basically pressurizes that, lifts the wastewater up, puts it into a force main, which is kind of like a pressure pipe for wastewater, and either sends it to another lift station to be repumped or directly to the wastewater treatment plant.
And the operative word in all of this is wastewater.
This is wastewater.
We don't want anything to go awry with pumping our wastewater and keeping it moving away and out of our homes, out of our plumbing, and to the treatment center or wherever it goes. Correct.
So because it's a gravity system, as long as you have potable water, which is drinking water from our water treatment plant that's sent to your house through our city water mains, and you use the toilets, you use the shower, you use the sink, that water will make it, that wastewater will make it to the lift station. And if the lift station is not functioning, that is the low point, that is a point of entry into the environment. And so this project will basically harden these lift stations to keep them functioning during storms so that we don't have what we call sanitary sewer overflows, which is a wastewater spill into the environment.
And that failure of the system.
Yeah.
So with regards to this project, so the FEMA 13 refers to there's 13 around
lift stations.
St. Augustine.
Well, so the city has about 94 lift stations at the moment that we own, operate, and maintain. These 13 were ones that were identified as damaged during Hurricane Matthew. Basically, we had floodwaters in the panels, and when that happens, it shuts the station down. And then it can lead to future wear and tear with salt water wicking through the cables and everything. So the damage is done, and it's going to continue to happen until we actually finalize the replacement project. Let's see.
And do you ever move them? I mean, do you ever look at something and say, this is in a really bad spot?
Yeah, we try lift station 23, which is in the plaza, the one with the big green fence or big green wall around it. That one's not in an ideal location. It's right in the middle of town, right in the middle of everything. And so we looked about relocating it, but it's very difficult to do that because the backbone of the infrastructure, the gravity sanitary sewers, they all lead to that one location. So in order for us to move that lift station, we have to do a lot of rerouting of the gravity mains. And we looked at doing that, and because of King Street and the Bridge of Lions, and we just really didn't have a better location for the cost. And so what we decided to do was to rehabilitate in place. And that's ultimately also going to be the least disruptive, both for the area and cost-wise.
Right. And you mentioned the green wall. Why do we have to put a green wall? Is it because it's right downtown? Is that just general rule of construction?
No. So the reason for, let's back up a little bit. We normally use a fence.
Okay.
So you've got the wire mesh traditional fence that you see, and that's there for safety. It's to keep people out. It's to keep you from getting hurt if you're walking through a construction site. But this being in the plaza, being in the area that it's located, highly visible, tourists, a lot of people coming, we decided to go with something a little bit more visually pleasing. So we went with a solid surface, and we worked with the historic preservation to help pick out a color that would be in line with the city's wishes.
Right, with our code. Yeah.
And so we went with this, and it actually looks very good.
It's not bad. And we've got some signs up around as well explaining what it is, so people don't misunderstand it for something that it's not.
Right. So we're constantly trying to inform the public of what we're doing to prevent any nefarious rumors.
Right. If you're just now tuning in, you are listening to The Break Room. I'm Melissa Whistle, Communications Director for the City of St. Augustine, and we are talking about lift stations with Engineering Manager Stephen Slaughter. Stephen, let's talk about the new design. This is an upgrade. Tell us about what's the value and the importance of the changes that are being made in these.
So one of the things we're doing with all 13 stations is we're adding a ballast to the wet well. So the wet well is this very deep, about 20 feet deep concrete cylinder that's in the ground. And it's supposed to run almost dry. And so with a high groundwater table, you get a lot of buoyant upward force. And so one of the ways these lift stations can fail when they do operate correctly is to be pushed out of the ground with the upward buoyant force.
Oh, okay.
So we're adding a concrete ballast to counteract that, to weigh it down, to prevent it from coming out of the ground during the buoyant forces.
So that's almost like it almost pushes up out of the ground, almost
Exactly.
like your swimming pool coming up out of its hole.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you can replicate this at home in your sink by taking an empty plastic cup or a glass cup and just trying to push it down into the water. You get an upward force, and that's what we're trying to prevent there. Some of the other things we're doing is we're adding, we're trying to elevate the lift stations where we can. That's the simplest way to get them out of the 100-year floodplain. And so what we've done is where we could in areas that were aesthetically capable to do so, we would elevate the wet well above the 100-year plus 2 feet elevation. And we would elevate the control panel above the 100-year plus 2 feet elevation. So what that buys you is a little bit of sea level rise, some wave action, and prevents everything from getting wet. It's obviously important to get to get the control panel above the water level. Some might wonder why we want to get the wet well above the flood water. The reason for that is because any flood water that makes it into the wet well will ultimately be pumped to the wastewater treatment plant. So we're basically sending salt water, the river, the ocean, to the plant. We can inundate the wastewater treatment plant. And that's another point of failure if we do that. So it's always always good to have as watertight a system as possible. At Lift Station 23, because of its location in the middle of the plaza, we're not able to elevate the wet well, and we're not able to elevate the control panel. And so what we're going to do there is we're going to utilize a flood-tight hatch in the street. So at grade, at ground level, the only thing you're going to see is a hatch in the middle of the street. You'll also see a control panel off to the west in the plaza. Mm-hmm. And that control panel is going to be what we call a NEMA 6P. It's about a 24-hour complete submersible panel that will keep it from water entry. Let's see. There's a few stations where we're doing a hybrid, where some of them the panels being elevated, some of them the wet wells getting a flood-tight hatch.
That watertight idea that you're mentioning is interesting too, because I'd never thought about it. And the idea being any water that goes to the wastewater treatment plant is treated.
Yes.
So if you have water other than what's coming through the pipes, that adds to the treatment process or adds to the volume of what's being treated. And you really only want to be treating truly our wastewater.
And the treatment plant's only designed to treat a certain amount of water. So if you send more than that, you technically can overflow there as well. And we really want to avoid that.
And speaking of overflow, before we move on, I know there's some other exciting projects I know you want to tell us about real quick. What they do have problems. Wastewater mains, force mains. Is there any particular thing? Is it the age of our pipes that you see that really causes any of these accidents that happen where you have a force main break or a water main break?
It's a continuous process. Once you have new construction, you put it in the ground. It's just like buying a new car. It continues to deteriorate over time, and eventually you have to replace it. So once it's in the ground and functioning properly, it's not going to last forever. And so that leads into a maintenance program, and the city's continuously trying to maintain their existing infrastructure. And there's different technologies, different options to do that. You can obviously pull it back out the ground and put a new one in, but that's very costly and requires digging up the entire street. There's other technologies called CIPP, cured in place pipe lining for gravity sewers. And we're actually implementing that. We got James Wheeler working really hard to start up our I&I program. Mm-hmm. And that also is going to eliminate groundwater from going to the wastewater treatment plant. I've got some other projects if you'd like to speak about.
Absolutely. And the I&I, we've used terms like slip lining.
Yeah,
and the I&I is the smoke testing. So we have all kinds of interesting things that go on.
Yes. So the smoke testing is a type of testing that we pump smoke into the gravity mains, into the manholes. And we're basically looking for connections that should not be there. We're looking for smoke coming out the ground that indicates that there's a leak. We're looking for smoke, coming out of a downspout that indicates that a downspout is directly tied to the gravity sewer, and so we're looking to eliminate those. We've got West Augustine. We just completed a gravity sanitary sewer improvement on West 5th Street. The next one, Jonathan Foster was project manager on that and actually design engineer. The next one in line is West 3rd Street, and we're kind of getting to the point to where you can't continue to put in these gravity sewers in West Augustine until you put in a new lift station. Okay. And so we're actually looking to do a master plan in West Augustine to identify the next lift station location so that we can continue to build out the gravity sewer there. Jessica Beach, our Chief Resiliency Officer, has Lake Maria Sanchez coming up. That's another really big project.
I can't wait to see that start happening. I feel like we've been talking about that for a long time,
and rightfully so. It's a big project. You want to make sure it's done correctly. That'll be the city's first stormwater pumping station. It's going to be interesting.
That's exciting.
We have Sevilla Street that's hopefully going to start construction, finish design this year, start construction possibly into this year. We have Marcus Penson working on the Headworks project at the wastewater treatment plant. That's the first level of treatment to remove rags before it enters into the wastewater treatment plant. I've already mentioned James Wheeler and the I&I elimination program. And we have the phase 2 of the downtown improvement district, which will include Spanish Street and Kuna Street. And we're actually going to separate that out, space that out a little bit so that we don't get construction fatigue in the downtown area.
Which we can very easily.
So we're looking to start construction on Spanish Street in 2022 and Kuna Street 2024.
Well, Stephen, it sounds like we have lots of things to have you back to talk about. There's never a dull moment in public works, particularly with your engineering projects.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming by and helping us understand the lift station downtown.
My pleasure.
As we wrap up another edition of The Break Room, I hope we answered your questions about the lift stations downtown and any other questions you might have about sanitary, sewer, and wastewater. If we didn't, drop an email to info@citysanog.com. Remember that in order to stay connected, you need to be connected. Be sure to like us and follow us on any of our social media platforms. You'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @CitySanog. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
You've been listening to The Break Room, a weekly program addressing projects and programs offered by the City of St. Augustine. Join us each week as the city's communications director, Melissa Wissel, has in-depth conversations with the people who make our town work to meet the needs of our community. The Break Room is produced by communications specialist for the City of St. Augustine, Cindy Walker, and engineered by Flagler College communication major, Lily McNeil. See you at this time next week for another edition of The Break Room.